Morning, everybody. Welcome to this next panel session. We'd like, if possible, to make this interactive, so as we go along, there'll be opportunities for you all to ask burning questions. We've got a good panel assembled for you here, vendors from the industry to talk about the subject at hand, which is the future of video collaboration. So without further ado, I think what we'll start by doing is I'll get each of them in turn to introduce themselves, the companies that they represent, and I'll first introduce myself properly as well. And probably, given some of the recent news, I'm going to ask Tim to cover a little bit more about what's going on in terms of financial news that's out there with Mitel and Polycom. Anyway, so firstly, my name's Rob Bamforth. I'm an industry analyst with Quocirca. Been coming to this show for very many years now, and it's interesting to see the future and evolution of what's been going on in the unified comms industry, and in particular video, which is a particular passion of mine and interest of mine. So now I'd like to let the panel introduce themselves, and I'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome all. My name's Antony Blake. I work for Cisco, and hopefully most of you know Cisco, but for those that don't, we're in collaboration, and especially video, we're a market leader. We've been innovating, and we've been delivering solutions for a number of years. I've been in the team for about 8 years, and personally I'm responsible for the business development side of the video across EMEA, or as many of you call Europe, Middle East, Africa, and looking forward to this morning.
Okay, excellent, thanks. Axel?
Fantastic. Thanks for having us. Axel Albrecht, I'm from Blue Jeans, senior sales engineer, responsible for the technical aspects of our service throughout EMEA. Blue Jeans, hopefully known to you as one of the cloud providers in the enterprise video cloud space. Initially founded to bridge the gap between different endpoints, but now extend that to a full breadth solution in the area.
Okay, thanks. Mark?
Good morning. My name's Mark Richer. I'm here as the chairman and founder of Starleaf. Starleaf is a company that we founded to explore how to make video communications doable, how to make it usable. We've had many, many years of messing around with trying to sort stuff out and have it not work. And we defined Starleaf to try and sort it out in the cloud. So that's Starleaf.
Okay, good. Mike?
Good morning all, my name is Michael Boyle. I work for PGI, and really I suppose PGI is often seen as, for many years, as being that audio conferencing provider into Cisco and Microsoft. But over the years, what we've been looking at is diversifying to open up the number of endpoints, and really I think video is seen as that utopic endpoint, and that's why really I'm here today. So I'm really interested in finding out what everyone feels is the next utopic point.
Thanks, and Tim.
Thanks, Rob. I'm Tim Stone. I'm from Polycom. I'm responsible for marketing for EMEA. I've been with the company 3 years. Prior to that, I spent 13 years working with Tony over at Cisco, and Avaya before that, Nortel. Polycom, probably a lot of you know us. We're one of the world leaders in video conferencing, video collaboration technologies. We're also a market leader in SIP handsets and a leader in audio conferencing phones, the triangular phone that's in most people's conference rooms. Rob asked me just to briefly touch on the Mitel question, because I'm sure it'll come up, and clearly there's only sort of limited things that I can say at this stage, but for those of you who missed it, on Friday there was a press announcement around Mitel intention to acquire Polycom. So what I can tell you today is that the combined company would be around a $2.5 billion collaboration company. There's fantastic synergies around the product line. So we have market-leading video, which obviously Mitel have limited in that area. We're very strong in enterprise. They're very strong in small mid-market. We're strong in Asia Pacific, whereas they've got limited coverage there. So there's a lot of fantastic synergies. A message has gone out to our sales force and the Microsoft sales force that all the roadmaps that we have together are committed, that we announced at Enterprise Connect around cloud interoperability, around the Skype user interface, Project Rigel across the video endpoints will continue, et cetera, et cetera. So great news there that relationship will continue. Beyond that, there's probably not a huge amount I can say. I'm open to questions, but it's sort of very early days. The acquisition is expected to close in Q3 of this year.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks everybody for introducing yourself. So, hopefully it's going to start feeding through to you to think about questions to ask over the course of this. We've got nearly an hour. I'm going to ask a few questions, but obviously I'd really appreciate audience members asking questions too. Just to start off though, we're going to talk about the future of video collaboration. Let's have a quick look back into the past, because I've been aware of and using video for 20, maybe 30 years for video conferencing and collaboration. We've often heard that this is the year of in the technology sector. So this is the year of video, this is the year of IoT, or this is the year of whatever. What's gone wrong? So really, I don't think anything has gone dramatically wrong, but let's have a look back into perhaps some of the things that have happened in the past that need changing. And I'd like each of the panel here to just give me an idea of what you think needs significant change, and going forwards, then what's going to be the impact of that. So I don't know who, but probably let's start this one in order. So maybe start here with Tony.
Well, what went wrong this morning is you managed to upstage me on the shirt, so I'm a bit disappointed there. But I think there's two areas for us, and I'm not going to hog both of them. I'm going to choose one of them. But interoperability, I think, has been a significant area which needed improving. And for me, usability. So user experience, that whole experience. And Mark mentioned earlier about the interop, so perhaps I'll leave that to him. But for user experience, for me, it's the what we term internally, and I know Rowan, our leader, says it's that delightful experience, that touchy-feely, almost, sort of consumer type approach to that connectivity. I think personally that's the thing that's been missing in the past, which we got wrong probably.
Okay, I think that's a good one to pick up on.
Yeah, maybe
Axel?
to add to that, if we take a look at where video has been successful, it has been in the personal life.
Yeah.
We're all familiar to FaceTime or Skype calls, or going into live video sessions and stream our experiences over the world. That ease of use and that user friendliness is still missing in a lot of the tools that are out there.
Yep.
And I think to get over that point of that island thinking that we used to have and to an open architecture and interoperability is a key success. So ease of use, scalability, but then making sure it's user friendly, and that in fact I think will be a key component to change that outcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good one. So,
Yeah, I think it is just fascinating how often this comes back to the user experience and ease of use. And a few years ago, before we started Starleaf, we really tried to think about, well, what's the why for that? Why have these systems been so difficult to use? And my feeling is this. My feeling is the problem is actually architectural, and that the traditional way that all our systems have been designed to this point has been actually as peer-to-peer. So each of the traditional video conferencing endpoints we buy has all of the hardware and software needed in it to talk directly to every other system. And so we end up with this huge mesh of every other endpoint trying to talk to every other endpoint. And I think that's just a huge problem. If we look at the phone system, for example, it's not like that. It's a hierarchy. We have smart servers and dumb clients. And so in the endpoints, we put as little as possible. We put all the intelligence in the center. And I think that's the architectural problem that's given us this ease of use crisis that we've had. So as we change that now, and I think this is like the most exciting time in video communications for 25 years, because we are on an industry-wide mission to change from that peer-to-peer system to have our video structured just as we have always structured our voice. And I think as we go through that transition, which we'll also do, I think, as a shift to the cloud as well, but as we go from peer-to-peer to a hierarchy, then I think that will fix our ease of use issues.
Okay. So, Mike?
I mean, all of the points here are extremely valid, and the usability functions and things like that, and I think we've all seen this. But just to be devil's advocate and just to mix it up a little bit, I think there's another sort of gate that's been put in the way as well. I think there are times when we're trying to collaborate or we're on conferencing together, I think a lot of people simply don't like to have their video on. I think it allows them to do other things. Let's all be honest. Who has honestly joined a conference call in the last 2 days, let's say, and actually been doing something else? I mean, maybe a little show of hands, maybe a little bit of honest. Yeah. Maybe there's only 2 people honest in the room. But I think that. So I absolutely fervently agree with the usability, so not to repeat that, but I really think as well there's a human adoption of having your visual presence being beamed all over the world. And I think that is another gate of entry and one to look at and want to try to see how we can get around these areas.
Okay, all right. So Tim, some thoughts on that? Users?
Thanks, Rob. It's a bit of a nightmare going last, isn't it? Because I would have said ease of use to start with. But Rob and ourselves did some research, actually, from end users last year around adoption. It was, ease of use was, I think, number 1, cost. But the other one, just to broaden the discussion out, was about accessibility as well. So, if you think only 5 years ago, we were trying to sell a desktop system for $10,000. And today, if you're a home worker, you can have HD quality video through your tablet or your PC, which is the way my teams work. The cost has just come down to a fraction of where it was. And because of that, instead of audio becoming a default meeting for many organizations, now video can become a default meeting because you always kind of try and play to the lowest common denominator. So if several of your remote employees are going to be dialing in, then the tendency is to have an audio call. But the research showed that if you can equip every employee with video through a mobile, through a tablet, PC, Mac, then everybody will be expected to join through video. So that's really making a big difference. You say the market is it is growing slightly, but the number of users is growing really, really rapidly with lower average selling prices.
Yeah, and actually that raises an interesting point, which I think I'd like to come on to in a moment or two. We'll carry on with this user thing, I think, first, but certainly metrics and how you measure adoption and usage, I think is something we should come on to over this discussion. But let's pick up on those two, because there's sort of 2 things coming through. One is we're not making the technology necessarily easy enough to use, and that could be down in the architecture, right at the edge or whatever. But there's also a human perception thing. So somehow we need to up-level people. And I'm interested, let's look at both of those. So maybe we'll start with the human side first. Is it more training that people require? Certainly looking out at all of you young folk in the audience. Yeah, there are 1 or 2, don't worry. It's, you're getting very accustomed to using video for all sorts of different purposes. Is that changing things? Is it a millennial versus mahogany row effect that's going on, or are there other things at play? So just some thoughts on... Yeah,
well, maybe, Rob, Blue Jeans did a study that was just released this week. Around 4,000 individuals that were asked around their business experience and private experience around video. Yeah. And your question is a very valid one. 80% said that they use video in their private life to a benefit effect. They said it's enhancing their communication and their personal way of interacting with others. But 28% said, yeah, we've also done that in the business. So we're missing the 72% of the people that say, okay, we haven't come there.
That's a big
And I think
gap.
to your point, where is it lagging behind? I think you need to have that. Ease of use is one thing, but then the enterprise is also conservative. So you need to show that you have scalability, that you have that access on a global level as well. And to your point, Mike, I think it's important that the audio conference idea or the web conferencing idea, yes, you probably were going away from a video image on that one, but it has to be a video image that in HD quality adds value to the conversation. I think then it becomes something that is easily adoptable for users, and they see the value in that one.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Yeah.
Right.
With regards to the audio only, I mean we've got some figures that say 65% of people are doing something else during an audio conference. And when you actually narrow it down, apparently 9% are exercising, which is quite interesting. Ladies tend to go to the loo, whereas gentlemen don't during audio conferences. These were the stats that we pulled out. And I think that whole driving towards greater productivity and this whole user experience, I think is important because when you look at an organization, only about 10% of the meeting rooms are video enabled. So if you're in meetings that doesn't have video, then it's a cultural thing. And I think that's
Yeah.
where it begins.
Yep.
So when you move to the road warrior or the home warrior, whatever you want to call them,
Yep.
video isn't perhaps a natural thing that you would reach for. We don't have our video hair. Well, some of us don't have any, but it's a look and a feel, but also it's a cultural thing. And I think if you're not
Cultural
used to it
thing.
in the business,
Yep.
and you're used to doing the multitasking,
Yeah.
you have to start questioning where are we looking for additional productivity from. And I say engage people in those meetings with the right quality of experience.
Right.
So I get the whole tablet piece, but is the tablet the right experience to drive that outcome you want? Is probably where we need to begin. That's an area I think.
All right. Do you, Tim?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I was also going to say about the in-room experience as well, which has been a big barrier. I mean, only I think about 4 years ago, like for example, I think everybody in the industry has been guilty of this. Our remote had 27 buttons on it, and you get the phenomena where people would come into a meeting room, and naturally everybody would avoid where that remote was because they didn't want to be the one who didn't know how to use it in front of all their peers and colleagues. So I think all the vendors have put a lot of effort into this, so that now if you schedule a meeting, through Outlook or whatever calendaring you're using, you invite the meeting room to that meeting, you walk in, and then it's got a calendar invite on the display, either on the touch display, touch screen, or even through your mobile device that I know a number of us support now. You press the join button and you're in the meeting. And secondarily, for example, some of the new technology, such as something we have called Eagle Eye Producer, it actually frames the room. So if there's one person at the far end of the room who's normally a tiny image, the camera will automatically zoom in and frame that person. If another face or person walks in, the camera moves out. So you're not having to rely on the user to do all the pan, zoom, tilt to get the best experiences. And that really, really helps and improves the experience and the adoption.
Okay, I think both of you. Mark first, and then Mike.
Go for it.
Looking at waving hands.
I think that's all right. My feeling is that we don't need to, we don't need to do anything overt to convert people to using video. I think people are really, really smart about figuring out things that work for themselves. I think if we can produce an experience that's accessible and useful to them, then they will just use it. And we can see that in other contexts. People are huge adopters of video if all the things are right. But my goodness, it has to be absolutely right. And small differences in the usability are just critical to us getting adoption.
Yeah.
So I think it will all just happen. I think really it's us. I think as an industry we need to look at ourselves. I think if the adoption, the take-up's not there, it's our fault. It's not the users.
Yeah, I think users are starting to adopt it anyway, as you said, with the home use, consumer use. So, Mike.
Well, again, from a slightly different perspective, just from talking an awful lot to customers around the world, one of the things I find is that, and it's a little bit back to your point, back to the question about millennials, I haven't particularly found that it's a millennial or a Gen X or a Gen Z. I've actually found it's had nothing to do with this at all.
Yeah.
We also have found in a lot of statistics that if the first person puts on their camera, then there is a relay effect to everybody else to turn on the camera. There's a pressure. There's a peer pressure around putting on the camera. I think we've all found this. But one of the things we've certainly found in the business is that lines of business adopt better than generic deployment of a product. So we find that if you, say, talk to lines of business within sales, and I'm sure there are a few salespeople in the room possibly today, ourselves included, they tend to use it more. HR, they tend to use it more because there's a purpose. And the big thing that I try to drive and try to understand is, what is the purpose behind anything you do? And if turning video on means you get a better interview, or if you get a better sale transcript, then that's why you do it. So I think we should look more towards the purpose, the drive for why we do this.
Okay, that's a good one actually, because the purpose, the ultimate goal, that's something that perhaps could be measured as well.
Indeed.
So it brings us on to the analytics question, which I want to bring in later. Okay, let's just look at that other point then. I think so that we got the, if you like, the psychological side, the user side of it, but there's this ease of use from the technology, the architecture, the infrastructure of video, and especially this interoperability issue, the islands of video issue that seems to have plagued the industry. Do you think enough's been done to address that as an issue? And if not, what more could be done? What more should the industry be doing to fix that issue? So a couple of thoughts, maybe? Infrastructure, yes, Mark.
Well, you know, if there was ever a setup for a cloud answer, that was it. You know, thank you, Rob. Well, here we go. Of course, I mean, this is old news, really, in the tech industry as a whole, isn't it? I mean, we've just had this inversion, really, of having servers in our companies and serving information to our users, to realizing that actually, increasingly, of course, our users are on the road, they're in their hotel rooms, they're out in the world, and of course they need access to all their information everywhere. And that's what's driven us to take our servers from our companies and put them in the cloud, because then the information is democratically available to everybody, whether they're in the company or on the road. And so we're just now, this is, of course, exactly the same forces are going to drive us for real-time communications as well. We've had exactly this effect of an island of video where we put our video communication behind our firewalls and we just all talk to each other within the company. So now, of course, again, the same forces. We have people on the road, we have people in hotel rooms. Of course, they need just the same democratic level of access to video communications as the people within the company. So in the same way, the forces will drive us to go from on-premise video to cloud video. And the only barrier to that has just been the question of whether the actual internet transport is good enough to support it. That's been the only thing. And that's why that shift from on-prem to cloud is whatever it is, 5 to 10 years behind what it's been for a CRM application, for example. Because, of course, we need a better internet to do real-time comms than we need to do Salesforce. So that's been the only barrier. And now, clearly, that we've passed that point. Absolutely, we can do cloud real-time comms, we can do cloud video. And so with that restriction removed, an architectural joy is in front of us where we can absolutely, immediately, and inherently just get access from everywhere. So we'll never think again of islands of video. We'll just have everything accessible to everybody.
Okay, Tim, and then?
Yeah, and I think, I think the browser is really critical in this area as well. So, for example, using, one of the technologies we have, WebSuite, and that can be deployed as a cloud-based offering through our partners, so that, we use it as some of the examples earlier for video interviews, for doing analyst briefings, for doing webinars, press interviews, this in my function in marketing. So, and then you've got a lowest common denominator there. If somebody's got a browser, they can get HD video, back into our systems. The other big disruptor, as we all know in the market, and the keynote earlier was around, is obviously Microsoft 365, and we get huge amounts of inquiries through our marketing efforts around, what are you doing with Skype for Business? How can you integrate? And obviously 365 is going to be, in my personal opinion, very, very transformational in the market and cloud PBX that they're offering. One of the things we're doing is embedding our Real Presence platform into the 365 cloud. It's not going to be till the end of the year or maybe early next year, but that will enable you to connect your legacy endpoints and existing endpoints into 365, so you can have video sharing between the different worlds, which that again will be a big help, and then in turn that links into consumer Skype.
Okay.
I think Rob, it's the lens that you apply to the issue. So we've talked about outcomes, and I very much agree with Mike that a user and a line of business is driving the outcome. But back to the question of have we done enough and that interoperability piece. I mean, one of the reasons we acquired Acano was because our customer base is predominantly on-prem. So we can over-rotate to cloud, but if your customers are not ready, you need an interim. And Cisco, with our Acano acquisition, through sort of a hybrid approach, is where we're seeing a lot of traction. So the ability to throttle on your cloud for agility, low cost of entry, the ability to pick up and drop and throttle that forward and backwards is really where Cisco as a company, combined with the Acano acquisition, and the browser, I agree with Tim, is key to that. You can go and have a look at those types of solutions. still have to consider the on-prem, which is a predominant amount of the customers, and hopefully many of you in here as well, as they transition to that cloud. And if they want to over-rotate to that, that's fine as well, because it's the right choice and it's what's the right outcome for that particular scenario.
Okay,
I agree with
there
that.
might be an alternative viewpoint coming up from Blue Jeans.
I'm wondering, we talk to so many customers that have a Lync or Skype for Business installation but are unhappy with the video performance on that. They're happy with chat and presence. They do an effort around audio, which can be a beast in Skype for Business or Lync as well. But if you can't talk to video, it becomes either very quiet. No, we have forbidden it because for bandwidth restrictions, or yeah, we're doing one-on-one calls, but everything else, let's not do that. So if you have a cloud-based solution, you can do the efforts of connecting that platform to the outside world is very, very simple. You go out over an edge client, edge server, and you throttle it automatically. So there's no hardware need in that one. And then, additional security on that one. Don't open up friendly federation to all the outside world, just a simple federation to your cloud provider, and you can leave the rest of the federation closed if security inhibits that. So there's, I think, a lot of benefit in not going into a hybrid or a hardware-based model again, but going in a cloud-based solution on that one.
Yeah.
Some thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, really agree with what Mark said right from the very first point. It's all about the lowest common denominator. It's all about if there is someone that's going to be excluded from that meeting, then that draws down the meeting and forces it down to the lowest point of being an audio-only call. And so what we've seen as a change, if I just think of France, for example, last year traveling even through Paris, you would be very lucky even to get on a 3G network on your mobile phone. Nowadays, 4G is absolutely prevalent, and for me, and I think in the business, it's been a game changer. Everywhere we are now, we have 4G at us. 4G immediately allows us to have this cloud video, so the whole game is now upped, and I'm seeing it day on day. There isn't a single customer that I certainly don't talk to that isn't saying we want video as part of our collaboration tools now, and I think there's been a real big shift. And the other real piece to this, and really it was your point, was the shift around the cloud in terms of the WebRTC elements and allowing people to get onto platforms without being inhibited by which Explorer type do we have to use. And I think that's been a huge effort. If you can just click and connect with no barriers, then it immediately will be used and adopted.
Okay, so making it simpler. So we just want to raise another point there.
Well, is that okay? Is that okay? It was just that, you see, and I do have sympathy with Antony because he makes a shed load of money selling stuff to you on-prem, and so that is, I can see that is attractive. But I think the thing is this, and it really is, normally the way this works in cloud, the way it works in cloud, at the beginning of cloud, it's the most attractive to small businesses, and then later to big businesses. That's the way it works. Because obviously as a small business, you can access to huge world-class infrastructure, but as a big business, you can buy that yourself. Fine. So, but the thing is, as I've been going around talking to a number of large companies around the world, actually it turns out that they're stuck. They have these large video estates, they have all this infrastructure, and they've bought all these boxes, I mean, from a bunch of people lurking around with me today, and they've got all this stuff, and they're stuck. They are absolutely stuck. Because over the years, they've added box after box after box after box after box. And they all sort of have this horrible sort of, interlinking. And they're just terrified, literally terrified to upgrade anything. Because if they upgrade the MCU, then they're worried the gatekeeper will stop working it. Right. And oh God, there's too many people nodding. And if the gatekeeper still works, then one of the endpoints will stop. I mean, the whole thing is just this interlocked sort of house of cards they daren't touch. So, I mean, much though I totally love the Acano people, because after all, that was my engineering staff in my previous company, and they are lovely people, and it's a fantastic product. It is just one more box you're somehow going to have to plug together into all the stuff you've got already. And really, it's a thing, because there is no part of computing where a cloud solution is more desperately needed than video. And that's because of this huge inherent complexity. You look at like Salesforce, I mean, plus or minus, it's a website. You could have a CRM server there on your network, it's not a big deal. But video, and even voice isn't so bad. It's a PBX, you put it there, it's a box, you're fine. Video's not like that. Video, through some sort of awful history and, I don't know, complexity, you end up with, you know, I don't know, an on-prem link deployment's what, 9, 10, 12 different servers, I don't know. It's a lot of complexity. And so when you get enormous complexity like that on-prem, the case for just saying no, cloud, is just absolutely overwhelming.
Well,
and so... sorry, I'm sorry. I'm quite enthused about this, you see.
I've got a feeling Tony might want to come back. I'm hoping to divide you up later into on-prem, cloud, and hybrid.
I'm going to thank Mark publicly for his sympathy, and I'm going to extend the bromance back by saying that, you know, if you've only got a hammer, then everything's a nail, right? And I agree with aspects of the cloud story. In fact, you know, Spark is our cloud offering. It's extending into Europe extensively. It builds onto that hybrid service. And for some of the customers that aren't in sheer fear and terror that Mark meets, you know, we have customers who are saying, we're on a journey, we get it. Right. You know, there is Blue Jeans with great cloud offerings. I'm sure Polycom is moving from a prem to a cloud. So I think, as I said, there is a journey. It's not for everyone. There is complexity, but also, I'm figuring that, as you said earlier, Mark, many of our customers kind of know what they're doing and they're waiting for the right solutions. And like Mark also said, it's a great time for collaboration because, you know, we have a lot of choice and we have the right people doing the right things, we believe now, with that user experience. So if it's cloud, fine. But there is a huge prem that we need to be considerate of. And there is many, many legal reasons why it has to be prem. There are solutions that are just not secure enough for cloud. And they're just not, in certain industries, are going to be available. And in certain regions of the world as well. So as a global company, you know, go get bandwidth in parts of the world that they can't. And there may be even local restrictions around what you can push across it. So I get it, but I'm happy with my prem problem at the moment. And there's others like Spark as well that you could consider.
Cloud, prem, hybrid? What do you think, Tim?
Well, I would just say choice is what's important. I mean, you know, we've come from a hardware background, as I'm sure, you know, everybody knows really. Big, you know, relatively expensive MCUs for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, you deploy on your premise. Of course, all that was changed to software 3 or 4 years ago. You can run in a VMware environment. You can put it on AWS or Azure. You can take it from a partner. So I think the main thing is to start, I think we'll talk a bit later about business process, what you want to do with the video technology, and then think about how you want to deploy it. But, you know, we can offer choice. I totally agree. We're getting way more inquiries now, especially through small, medium business who simply want, who ring into us. You know, we get 12,000 calls a month into my department, inquiries, or through the web. A lot of them say, yeah, this sounds great. Can I start using it this afternoon? Where do I put my credit card in? You know, small companies, they just want to fire up their browser and start using it. So I totally agree. You know, with Mark, it's definitely, especially in the small medium sizes, going that way. But some larger companies like financial institutions, government, defence, do want to control the environment. So you know, we still see demand for both, really.
Okay, so I think at this point we'll try and get some. We've got a bit of interaction going on here, so maybe some questions from the audience would help fuel the conversation or argument. So there's a chap here who put his hand up, and has anybody else got a question, burning question, for the next one? So this chap here has a microphone on its way. There he is, so 3 rows back.
Hi there. Yeah, I was just going back over what.
That's better.
Sorry, going back over what you've all just said. There's definitely a place for all of these. And I think that's the real thing that stopped it. About 5 years ago, I was working in a company and they had a brilliant unified communication system, but they had, you know, the voice expert, the VC expert. I was at the Germanic conference giving a talk, and CERN were talking about having video conferencing with 500 different endpoints. I think that's where you need the on-site, you know, your own video conferencing, very flexible. I think cloud is great for the small and medium-sized business at the moment, but I think there's always been a time, and then we're looking at, you know, we ourselves on Skype, and it's gone from having a voice expert, having a video conference expert, to a Windows person and a network person, and you can have a unified communication system. So I think that's a real place that is prevented it happening. The user experience has been there if you had the expertise. I think now we're seeing lots of different options of wherever you are on the scale, you can stand on equal footing in UC, and that's what's going to take it off. But my question really was, a few years ago, we were looking at low latency, high definition audio, and whether that's going to move into the unified conferencing and the video conferencing, kind of desktop thing. And I was just wondering if we're seeing high definition, but are we also looking at lowering the latency and the delay on video to get that better user experience on that side of things as well?
So lower latency, better user experience, faster connection. Is that something that you're, or any comments?
Just to clarify, is your question about that regard to audio conferencing or video conferencing?
No, video conferencing.
Video conferencing.
Kind of like sub 13 millisecond, kind of delay on video and high definition. Is that something people are complaining about? Because at the moment on most video conferencing there is a slight delay. It's not so bad when you're in a standard thing. But
it's a quality issue then, video quality and latency and speed and so on.
More the latency on it rather than the actual definition of it.
I did hear audio as well, actually, Mark. So I was going to ask that question. So I think the short answer is most of the development in the cloud begins to take that into consideration. And certainly for us, we have technologies that are looking at that. On-prem is a little easier to control. If you have certain of the networks vendors, one comes to mind, obviously, we've put that type of technology into routers. So that's going in that obviously interacts more beneficially with our endpoints, but I'm sure can extend elsewhere. But latency and those discussions were very, very prevalent about, for me anyway, 5 years ago when we were looking at very high definition, what we called immersive technologies. Some of the new clients now don't need that level of bandwidth. We've got new codecs that are coming, H.265, that take into consideration those things. So I'm seeing less of that as a question, but I believe any cloud vendor worth its salt is probably putting some technology in to sort of look at that anyway, and if they're not, they should be, and certainly we are. That's how I'm seeing it at the moment.
So certainly Axel's
Maybe for
nodding.
one of the cloud vendors present here. So if I may, I disagree with your point saying that is geared towards an on-prem solution more if you have larger scale sessions. I actually think the cloud-based model is more geared towards that. So if you have a distributed network with local POPs that take up on the geolocation all the users from their own location, you can much easier scale to a level in higher participant as well. You don't get also to on-prem stopping points, right? So your capacity 20, no, you just go over that. And cloud is at infinite adding the capacity in that. So just on that, but just on times, delay times, very well said. It's the codecs that make the difference in that. So, you would have a mobile phone with a different bandwidth coming into that same area, and you have your room system coming with 720 in that area, but it shouldn't be delayed. So if you're testing it on cloud and it's delayed, you're not testing the right service. Can you, sorry, have a microphone?
We can't hear.
Left to the mic again, sorry. Just to clarify, just quickly.
Sorry, I was more asking whether that is still, because there was a time when people were coming back and saying we're not going to use video conferencing because the quality of it is not good enough for us. Yeah. I was just wondering, do we think we now got there where, yes, things will improve naturally over time, but do you think we've now got to the point where that is not a roadblock to people looking at video conferencing? We're now at the point where we can say any of these solutions, we're now at the point we've got to where we need to be.
Is quality the roadblock, right?
So I think also as well, because your initial point was about Skype as well, and I think one of the things I often see in the business a lot today is people talk about video conferencing, but just to be very clear here with the panel, there are really two different types of video conferencing. And there is the webcam with the flash driver, and you join your meetings like this, and that is something we can talk about in a moment. And then there is an IP endpoint where I don't think at all there is any latency. So I think to your first one, though, this is actually what has stifled the cloud area, is that if we take Skype, for example, be it Skype for Home or Link and Skype for Business, and any tools like this, then what you do see is, yes, of course, because there is a limiting factor called the internet, then absolutely, when you've got an audio stream and a video stream, then what a lot of vendors tend to do is they tend to favor the audio stream as being the most important element to push through the channel, and then we apply a slightly different codec to the video stream, and so you get this lag, this latency that many, many people talk about, and then that's the piece that we've been working on and many, many vendors work on, is how do you work on audio and video streams and bringing them together just to stay in a pure cloud and a pure PC or mobile environment. And that we've seen even in the last 8-9 months, huge leap forwards. And I don't know whichever tool you use nowadays, I think we all now see big changes. But when you bring a video endpoint in to these pieces, it changes the matrix. You're bringing in a completely different match, and then you're going to get possible mismatch depending on what service you've got. So I think it's just two different types of video in your question.
Okay. Sorry,
So
maybe a quick point, and then it sounds like a very detailed discussion, maybe after the questions, but a quick point.
So yeah, latency is undoubtedly critical in any form of comms. And I was remember a few years ago being told by a BT engineer that they guaranteed a 6 millisecond latency in the voice network anywhere from any call in the UK to anywhere else in the UK. I mean, they knew it, and it's minuscule. It's nothing. Well, in video, I'm sorry, it's never going to be that bad, and never going to be any near as good as that. And we're really looking at delays from the video processing. We're looking at delays from the network, and we're looking at delays from the end equipment, particularly the TVs. And we just have to have a war on all of these. Video processing just is, we just do the best we can. The network, to some extent, of course, if you're here to New Zealand, we're looking at the speed of light being an issue. And so it is what it is. However, if you really want to cut your latency, don't use Wi-Fi. That'd be what I would say.
Yes.
Wi-Fi is not your friend in this situation. So, and finally, the video processing. For any of you that have video installations, there's been a really unfortunate thing happened in the last 5-10 years, which is TVs. Because in an effort to make Angelina Jolie and a number of other people look tremendous on your TV, they've jammed in a fantastic amount of video processing. And what that's resulted in is a huge increase in the latency just through the TV. So just from the input and the HDMI to it coming out. I mean, it's invisible, because of course if you're watching Sky or something, you just never know about it. But it's there, and in video conferencing you will experience it, but it's invisible. Right. Most TVs have a game mode where you can cut out all the processing and get low latency. And I would urge any of you that have a video estate, if you haven't done this, to go and check every single TV you have and make sure it's in game mode. And that alone could take 50 to 100 milliseconds at each end of all your video calls, which would actually have a fantastic improvement on your system. So I think there are things you can do. You want to check your TVs, and you want to not use Wi-Fi if you possibly can. Okay. And then beyond that, us as a group, we'll do our damnedest to do everything else. So, but it's a very big issue. You're absolutely right.
Hopefully addressed. I think there's a question at the back there. Thank you. Thanks.
Hi, you've all been speaking about effectively using video as part of the call and getting everybody to improve the position. Just get the feedback of that. Where are we going in terms of the different manufacturers and being able to do more of the collaboration? So where we've got different companies coming together and co-working, co-authoring. At the moment, that's largely limited to same stack. So are the bridging providers going to be helping with that sort of thing?
So bridging the stacks in terms of collaboration, I guess, is the question there. So not just video interoperability, but
yeah. So if you take a look for a cloud-based provider, for us it is you bring us H323 or you bring us SIP from an endpoint perspective. If that's coming from Polycom or Cisco or Huawei, even, it really doesn't matter. The end user, the customer, has the choice to have either a diverse or hybrid infrastructure or go on one vendor. But you need to make sure that the experience is the same as if it would be an on-prem solution.
Okay. Any other points?
Yes, so from our side, we're mainly really on the content sharing side of things within the video stream itself. So obviously sharing documents, whiteboarding we can do, and we've put a lot of effort into the content sharing around the Microsoft experience as well. Right. So that you're not exiting your standard workflow. So if you're in a link client, you simply click on the share button, and the content is rendered across all the video devices, backwards and forwards seamlessly. So just trying to preserve the user experience. That's pretty much what we do. We also done a lot of work around video content management in terms of hitting the record button from any device, storing that content, and then enabling you to store it and view it from a portal and render it back on any device as a recording, which is really useful for training, education, company meetings, etc.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what we're doing.
Okay, so Tony and then Mike.
I think
okay.
certainly for Cisco, for us through our Spark solution, to Mark's point, this is where I think cloud can leapfrog, and for us the ability not only to share at the time, but to actually historically recall what you've shared and had that readily available. I think cloud is a great place to do that scalably. And so things like from us at Spark, where the call, the IM, the presence, the documents that you shared, and then the meeting after the meeting, those are the sorts of things that as a collaborative stack, we are very much focused on now, and I think cloud's a great place to scale that, definitely.
Okay, Mike, you want to add to that?
I really think that was the #1 question. It really is. I think this is exactly what everyone's looking. That's utopia. So everyone is looking, everyone understands audio conferencing, they get what web conferencing is, they get what video conferencing is, and the piece that's kind of missing from it a little bit, and where we're really driving this, is data and getting your documents. And exactly to your question, being able to actually work on documents live in the moment, asynchronously as well as synchronously, that's what it is really all about. It's not about any one element, it's about how the elements all come together to really collaborate, because I think we've lost the word sometimes collaboration and understanding what it means. And so I think that is brilliant, and it is exactly, certainly at PGI, that's what we are focused on, is how do you bring all the dots together? Because that's what the customers need.
Okay, excellent. Mark, do you have a...
Yeah, I think we're on a super journey here, and I think, of course, I'm going to say cloud's going to help all that, and I think it really will, because I think as we go on to unify voice, video, and IM in a single transparent platform, then I think that we'll got up very, very nicely with document collaboration, which, you know, in the old days was sort of, you know, I'll work on a spreadsheet on my PC and somehow I'll give you control of my keyboard and mouse. Now, that just doesn't look like a very modern solution. I think that the modern solution today is Office 365, it's Google Docs, where in fact the cloud owns the document, and then all of us have separate mice and keyboards, potentially simultaneously editing that central document. And I think that model works very, very nicely together with us when we've got cloud voice video IM. Then I think that cloud collaboration with Google Docs or Office 365, I think is just a perfect fit, because we'll see that, we'll share that visual view of the document, and we'll work on it collaboratively. So I think it's going to be really pretty fantastic, actually.
Okay, and hopefully a big driver of value and adoption as well. There's a question there. Yes, sorry.
Hi, I'm from the Royal College of Physicians in Regent's Park. The majority of people we collaborate with don't work for us. The majority of people we collaborate with don't all have the same video conferencing technology available to them. And in some cases they work for the NHS, which is a nightmare all of its own making. Interoperability has and will always be the biggest problem. Most of the big players in the market for the last 30 years have been selling products for companies to communicate with other parts of the same companies. There has never been, in my opinion, very much interest in allowing the necessary amounts of interoperability that you'd actually need to get different people talking. Now, with that in mind, we tend to use cloud-based suppliers because there are a couple of cloud-based solutions out there that allow us to have everything from ISDN to SIP to WebRTC all going through one cloud bridge, which for us is absolutely brilliant. But I'm now seeing Facebook video, WhatsApp video, many other software players coming onto the market that small organizations and charities will use. And my question is actually interoperability going to get worse rather than better as there are more software solutions out there?
It's a good question. Essentially, it's interoperability and integration, I guess, bringing it all together. So bringing it all together for a value to... I know we're entering in the last 10 minutes now, so thoughts on Interoperability and bringing the whole thing together. So who wants to chip in first? Go on, Mike?
Just to kick it off, because I think we're all probably down the same vein. You mentioned all the key points there, and one of them, just to pull out for a moment, is the WebRTC piece. So I think we can have a millennia of options to come in, providing we produce an API available that is usable, and WebRTC is that route. And WebRTC we see right across the business as being a mechanism to literally allow all of the different ones in, because the moment you become siloed, then as you rightly said, there's just going to be another player that comes in, and suddenly you've just got 10, 20 different solutions within your business. So for us, certainly at PGI, and I know across the board here, WebRTC, or in general, looking to open API, and there are many, many businesses out there like Built.io and companies like that that we can utilize to let them do the legwork to actually then let our solutions open naturally up themselves. And I think it leads to where Cisco are at the moment, in fact, even. So.
Okay, so go on, and then Tim after Mark. Go on. So Tim,
sorry.
Mark first, sorry, and then Tim.
Okay. You know, I have to say, I share your pain there. That is just ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, here we are, you know, I mean, anyway, I came into the comms business to make stuff work together, and sometimes you feel that other people came into the comms business to stop stuff working together. I mean, Apple, I'm looking at you. I mean, FaceTime, what's with that? I mean, they produce a really lovely video comm system that works really in a really quite pleasant, satisfactory way, and then they totally stop any of us interoperating with it. And I think I probably speak for all of us when I'm going, hang on, chaps. You know, that's rubbish. And so some of it, I think historically, there have been, you know, whenever you end up with a duopoly, then both parties always say they want to interoperate, but never do. Okay, there's that. But then there's this other stuff going on where you're looking at Apple going jeepers, and it's not just them, and there's other video providers coming along. And it's just really, really sad and incredibly frustrating. If they just gave us half a chance, we would interoperate with FaceTime tomorrow. You know, and it's not that we can't reverse engineer the protocols, we can. It's just they've damn well put security certificates on the thing to actually stop us even doing that. So it's just rubbish, and I think it's a collective thing for all of us. You know, all of us need to stand up as a group and say to these people, whether it's Facebook or it's Apple, I don't care how big you are, you're going to put together a system which deliberately stops the rest of the world interoperating and saying, no, it's not good enough, sort it out. And I'm just so sad. I can only hope that over time, you know, tech is a very sensible, democratic, fair process. I fundamentally believe that, and so therefore right will win out. And that means that we will end up with an open, interoperable set of solutions. And but it could be pretty grisly getting there, and I don't know what to say other than just you know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that good tech always wins out. And somehow we ended up with Windows on the desktop. Anyway, so Tim, some thoughts
normally.
Well, that's a bit hard to follow that, really, isn't it? I totally agree. I mean, I was just going to go back over the last decade, and there's probably some people in the room here who've really, really sweated and tried hard around interoperability around the OVCC, which is, you know, the group of all of us here and service providers. It's been just really, really hard work getting it on a common agenda and getting these systems to work together. So we've ended up with these huge islands, and like Mark was saying there, the new, you know, the FaceTime island is yet another one. I think the browser is the common denominator that we can get so far with for people using WebRTC. Again, we've still got challenges on all the browsers adopting WebRTC, so that's not the holy grail either. So. Yeah, I think fair play to Microsoft though for putting, you know, our platform into their 365, because that will give us a chance to connect the Skype island, as it were, into the broader video environment. So that's at least that's one piece of progress.
Yep. Okay.
So I have a slightly different lens because I stand here with a very unique relationship in that Cisco and Apple are actually doing joint development. So it isn't going to solve the WhatsApp problem, it isn't going to solve the Facebook video problem, but what we are seeing is that there's a lot more discussion at our level around standards, around if people want to interconnect from these social type apps, And I get your point that the NHS is clearly one of those that just says, look, I could do it here, why can't I do it when I'm in the surgery or wherever? But we are seeing some of that change, and I think the Apple one for us is significant because they've never partnered with anybody, and OS 10 will have some unique technologies in it that I'm not at liberty to talk about, but you can read publicly about the Apple and Cisco relationship, and that has been driven from needing the cloud to connect to Prem, because there is still a big Prem, but we're also seeing others like Facebook and WhatsApp looking at that standardization if they want to go forward. But I still think it's that consumer, and as you know, many of the endpoints up here and the desk-based endpoints are all standards-based, and I think Microsoft's doing a job around that as well, trying to become more standards. If not, I'm sure all of us have got demos on their stands that you can go and look at about interoperability now.
I'm sure they all have. But quick comment from Axel, and then I'm going to allow each of the panelists a 30-second wrap-up at the end.
You raise a really good point. I mean, the conclusion for me would be try to stick with standard-based endpoints as we are discussing here, and have a service that asks you as a user on how you want to join, not having you say, okay, you've got to join on that or that endpoint. So that liberty, browser-based, mobile devices, WebRTC, room systems of any kind, and start away from the islands in any way.
Okay, so quick wrap-up. I'm sure we're almost at the end of time, looking at the clock. What I'd like to do, though, is quick question to each of you, just to wrap up now. 30 seconds. We'll go along the panel this way around. The future of video collaboration is what it said up there. If you could give a quick 30-second, what is the future of video collaboration from your perspective, that would be brilliant. So do you want to start, Tony?
Sure. Well, certainly from what I'm seeing and what I'm being asked, the future of video collaboration is a delightful experience at the user end, from turning the thing on to making your first call, to a world where it doesn't really matter what the architecture behind it is, whether it's cloud or on-prem, it's just reliable and works. And it's typically going to be purchased by a line of business that actually drives an outcome and a decision around the experience that you want from having that, trying to derive that outcome.
Okay.
That's what I see that the right positive is.
Okay.
But I get the luxury of going first again.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's covered most of the bases there, but so Axel.
So yeah, bridging that gap was what we know and experience from the private world into the enterprise world, making it really easy in that one. I think that an experience for the future. You have to make sure that from all the providers here that we scale at an enterprise level. You know, as a cloud-based service, you need to make sure you can go to that and fix situations where you might want to connect maybe directly to a data center to avoid any hassle over the internet. So these are all possibilities that a large-scale service that scales in that way can handle. So that will be my vision for the future.
Mark, your 30 seconds.
I think the future of this is video, voice, and IM in a single cloud-based platform that allows us to just effortlessly call each other, regardless of what technologies and what systems we're using. And if you'd like the 30-minute version of that, I'll be doing that at 2 o'clock. So anyway, thank you very much for coming. If you came along that, I'd be delighted. Thank you.
Mike.
Absolutely. So really, in my eyes, what I see is that video is a fundamental, but only a component of the main story, which is collaboration. So as we drive audio, as we drive data, video will drive along with it. That's what I see as being the future of video, and providing we keep all of them moving together with the user at the heart, with efficiency as the main goal, then that's how video will go forward in our eyes.
Okay, thanks. Tim, final thoughts.
And going last, difficult, but
sorry.
I can envisage an environment where we're not talking about adoption anymore. Video is so ingrained in the purpose of employees that they just can't do their jobs without it, whether they're delivering remote healthcare, whether they're doing education or in manufacturing, touching customers. It's just part of their daily jobs, and it's natural, and it just it doesn't have to be pushed to them. They just want to use it.
Excellent. So the future of video is we won't be talking about it. We won't need to. It'll just be a standard part of the infrastructure and hopefully easy to use. I mean, they're all going to try and deliver that for you. So go and have a look at their demos. Go and have a chat with them, of course. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you found it interesting. Thank you very much for the panel. Some interesting discussion. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.